Hi, Joffin. What it looks like I have some technical difficulties right now. That's what I get for updating the OBS. Okay, that's kind of annoying. I will try to just reinstall OBS, I guess, right now, maybe. I should not have done that. All right. For those of you who are tuning in, unfortunately, I have some technical difficulties right now. I don't know why, but I updated OBS and now my screen is not showing. Aside from the picture in picture. If anybody knows how to fix this easily, or knows what the fix is, I would appreciate it. What is going on? Should not have updated. See, that works, but for some reason it doesn't show my thing anymore. Nope. Ooh, actually, there we go. All right, I fixed it, or more like luck. If you can hear me and see my screen, please type in the chat box. All right, perfect. All right, I think we are okay now. All right, so I will be as a background. I will be playing. Actually, let me bring that up here. I will be playing on Jarvis's, charity, last October, in these 5 money matches. Hey, Mike, that's mine. Here's JR's. So, every match is gonna be $20. Replying to. Yeah, this is only 3 cards on the sideboard, but perhaps we should play more. But I think the matchup is okay. If today doesn't go well, then obviously I need to go back to the drawing board. But yeah, it's gonna be. And if you want to just donate to the causes, regardless, you can do that, obviously. But it's gonna be $20 per match win. So maximum of $100 if one person wins, all 5 matches. We're gonna play 5 matches. That's, I know, a lot, but we'll see how it goes. If nothing else, it's gonna be good testing for me and hopefully for JR as well. 1 second. I need to be. I'll be right back. All right. Thank you for waiting. I guess if anybody has any questions about, I guess the relevant, sideboard and the relevant main deck, feel free to ask. I think it's like pretty straightforward in terms of, I think it's obvious which three cards are coming in, and then I think what's coming out is like mostly fairly obvious too. I mean, obviously the bog is gonna come out and the endurance is gonna come out, and then the last card is I don't really think I want to open with two Fiend Artisan. It is a little bit slow in the matchup, but I think I still want access to it because it's good in the late game. If you untap with Artisan, you probably just win, like just like any other matchup, right? It's like a Dread Horde, right? If you untap, the game's over. Granted, more setup. That's the only caveat, I guess. A big one though, but nevertheless, one caveat. So yeah, I board out the fourth Artisan because I don't think I want to draw two, right? I think the first one to end the game is probably pretty nice. Anybody have, any questions about this list? Notably, 11 fetch lands, like the cleanest mana base possible. I think you just need two Bayou, that's like good enough. Two basics, two arbors, right? That's like bare minimum everything else. Notably, I cut all the Besejus just because I don't think you need them right now. Like I think the format is just way too fast now for Beseju. Maybe you want one in case somebody plays an ensnaring bridge or something crazy like that. But I think right now having access to turn one snuff out is just way too important. Like if you have this in your hand and don't have swamp, you probably lose the game. Like that's a game ending scenario, right? Where if you just cannot turn this on turn one. If we play Thoughtseize in the sideboard, that's like another scenario where it comes up. I think right now Legacy is just way too broken, way too fast, and you need to have all your stuff ready turn one. I think that's my personal opinion. I think you can play the first Besiju, like I said. I personally wouldn't play more than that at the moment, unless the format slows way down for some reason. Let me see. The weakest card in the main deck is probably the fourth Shepherd. I don't know what to play in that slot. Like it's probably the best of the bad options. Like I think I want more one drops because the way the deck is built is Artisan just needs food, right, to pitch. And then the gameplay it's actually kind of toxic gameplay. Like if given enough time, you just get Artisan untap and you just lock your opponent out. It's actually kind of miserable. Whether that be with Gris, I guess Gris is not a good example. Gris is like for the control decks and you just like pull ahead, but like Endurance to lock out Delver, like Opposition Agent to lock out combo or green decks, Engineer to lock out Tribal. It's just like kind of miserable, to be honest. But yeah, you need enough food essentially to do that. I think the question I may get asked is what's it called? Why no Wirewood or Elvish Visionary? I just don't think you need them anymore, right? Like with Artisan, this is if this untaps, you should win, right? Like you don't need to draw cards. And I think you want to streamline the deck where everything is either mana or payoff. And then Wirewood and Visionary don't really do either, right? It's like not really a payoff. It's not real. It's not definitely not mana. Uh, they can arguably help smooth the deck out. I'm just not sure. Like I, so my gauge of Legacy right now is just incredibly fast, and I just don't think you have that kind of time anymore. Like, it's good. It's really good actually against the control decks, but like I find it kind of mediocre everywhere else. Like I think it's good against Delver, but like that's not really the reason why you win or lose, right? I think whether you get rushed in the beginning, like, is really the reason why you win or lose the first few turns. Same thing with initiatives. Same thing. A lot of these prison decks. I think it's like really good only against control, right? Like they don't really want to see that, but that's probably the only matchup I think. Up to 6 dorks. I think just are incredibly synergistic with Artisan. Not to mention, it puts so much pressure on your opponents. Right, you have 3 mana on turn 2, possibly 4. Um, like pretty much open playbook, right? Like the whole point of elves is you make mana, and if they don't answer your turn 1 dork, which they should, um, you slam on Artisan or whatever on turn 2 or 3, and then they any fair deck probably can't stop that. And I say that with a caveat, right? Some of these are like I'm not even sure I count initiative as a fair deck. It's almost like a combo deck, the way it's built, where the combo is like threats plus answers turns 1 through 4 or 5 or whatever, right? And tonight I'll have the pleasure of playing against John Ryan Hamilton. John Ryan Hamilton in a match to see where we stand against the initiative matchup. I feel very good. I think that about the Delver matchup. I think it's with the changes that have been forced upon us by initiative. And actually, I want to clarify. These are changes that probably would stick even if there is a ban. Let's just say, right? Hypothetically speaking, let's just say White Plume Adventure gets banned or something like that, or Ancient Tomb, which I think is the real egregious card. I think these changes are gonna stick regardless. I think it's something that was driven by the fact that we were forced to adapt, and we may have eventually gotten there, but there was like no pressure before because I felt like, aside from maybe Moonstompy, I did feel like this was the best. Cradle Control was the second best deck in the format prior. Now Moonstompy has fallen off a cliff because of initiative, but I think if we can make the initiative matchup okay, I think Cradle Control is still, a top 2, 3 deck in Legacy, right? Granted, very difficult to play, because I think there's just a lot of decisions to make, so a lot of room for error. But in terms of like if you've never played elves before, I think it's probably a little bit easier than before because in a lot of ways it's kind of like a tempo slash prison deck, where the tempo elements are kind of like snuff out and just like really pulling ahead with early mana, right? With the dorks, and then obviously the prison with Artisan is like kind of a prison card, right? You just like tutor whatever lock piece you need. All right, I will check on JR to see how he is doing. I think he is testing his side right now too, but I'll message him on Discord, I guess. Actually, if there are any okay, so okay, to answer the classified top secret, yeah, that would be the surprise of a lifetime, right? If the Neto build is what I'm secretly working on. Unfortunately, I don't really play that card outside of when people request practice, so to speak, against that specific build. Um, I think if you're looking for a good Nettle build to play, and that's just like the kind of style you enjoy, I would look to Adriano So Strong's build. I Of all the builds that I've seen, I personally think his is the best. One second, let me bring up his list. So, where is it? I would probably play something along these lines if I'm playing like a Netto build, and the reason being is I think he has the best mana base, and I think one of the ways you lose outside of combo is you get mana screwed, and I think 18 lands and 3 Once Upon a Time is where I want to be in this kind of list. So shout out to Adriano, obviously. Obviously, he also won the Pioneer Challenges kind of recently. I think around the last time we were on stream. All right, so John Ryan's ready. All right, he's ready, so we'll start whenever he is. When he makes the official challenge. Or I can make the official challenge, depending on his response. Alright, he is going to challenge me any second now. He's also live streaming this, so if you want to like check it out from his perspective, there's that too. He is one of the primary founding fathers / innovators of the initiative deck. So I would recommend his, and there's a few other people, but obviously his advice has more weight, right? So once he makes the official challenge, we can start. But yeah, we don't have much, to be honest, against initiative, but that is partially because I think that's the correct thing. All right. I think here depends. Okay, there's two ways to do this, right? Do you know what your opponent is on? Because it doesn't matter as much for us because we're not a deck that can mulligan as aggressively as maybe initiative can or should. But I think assuming we know what our opponent is on, not particularly a great hand. Though we have ramp, it's like speculatively good. There's no snuff out, which is a shame. I think what we'll do here is we'll try to keep this. They're on the play, but like snuff out changes a lot, I think. We have potentially two bad cards against him, right? Like the Shepherd is definitely bad, and then the Gris here is kind of medium. So maybe we should aggressively mulligan. The Dork here is kind of insane. It feels like we should. I'll try keeping, and we'll see what happens. If we lose, right? Like not a big deal. It's all for practice slash charity, anyways. It's unfortunate because we're not really one of those type decks that can really mulligan as aggressively because it's still a critical mass deck because of Cradle and because of Natural Order, right? Those are like critical mass dependent cards. Natural Order less so, especially post board, but definitely want to. So the other thing that is like kind of weird, or not weird, but like there's a little bit of, does your opponent expect you to be on certain cards, right? Like if John expects me to be on Snuff Out, then he may keep more medium hands too, right? There's this like range of keeps, so to speak, that my buddy Jonathan Zhang will mention, right? The old turn one once upon a time. It's funny, he posted like what is the correct number, and then Jason Murray find there's tension before Snuff Out and Cradle. No, because keep in mind like Glimpse would have been in those slots prior, right? Maybe it was foolish for me not to mulligan here, but I think we can keep most hands, or at least I would ideally like to keep most hands. Maybe that's wrong. All right. So here, I don't think I'm gonna fetch to thin. We definitely take the Landlord Mystic. Wasteland is kind of iffy in this match, especially on the draw, right? Like, there's no point in wastelanding John when he already has a White Plume out. You just fall further behind, potentially. So he plus, which is ooh, oh my god. I'm not sure we can beat that kind of start. Yeah, I'm not sure we can beat that in the Jailer, right? Like that's the 1-2 combo against us. I found this card to be kind of obscene against us. I think here, since we're behind, we're just gonna have to flood the board, right? And hope to top. I think our winning line now is probably top deck Natural Order. Because we're kind of behind. Also, this matchup is very play draw dependent, and unfortunately, we were on the draw. If you ask me to like handicap the matchup, I would say it's pretty even, and like I said, a lot of it is like draw dependent. I mean, not draw dependent. Play draw dependent. Okay, so he's going after our mana, which is pretty heads up. I think he's thinking about how he can lose here. Oh my god. Yikes, that is a problem. And also for what it's worth, I don't think Netto is beating this hand out of our opponent. Or not our opponent, but John. Right? Like, they aggressively go after the mana, which is smart. I think we. Ooh, this is like really bad. Come on. So the Archon is very good against elves in general. We even have a hard time beating that card. Ooh, alright. So I think we are probably just dead here. Right? Yeah. Actually, let's concede. Like, I don't think there's any hand that we have that's gonna beat that kind of start. That's almost like getting turn 1 reanimate. Yeah. Like if they have turn 1 Entomb Exhum with like discard backup, it kind of feels like that's what happened to us right now. Thank you for the follow, big guy 000. And like I said, I boarded the 2 removal spells and the progenitors. Like I said, maybe we have to have the snuff out, but like I said, I don't really like to aggressively mulligan. Also, it's significantly worse when your opponent knows you're gonna aggressively mulligan. And like I said, if we get smashed, not entirely a bad thing, right? Because we know we have to address the matchup. We did just get run over right now, but to be fair, our hand was like probably below average, and we are on the draw too. So perhaps is the 3-card sideboard intentional? In what way? I only listed the relevant cards in the matchup, if that makes sense. Digital Sloth 58. Like, there's other cards that I would play, obviously, but none that would come up in this matchup. And like I said, there's 2 obvious cards that come out, and then the third one is... I actually don't think Fiend Artisan is, like, super great in this matchup, only because if your opponent knows what they're doing, and granted, a lot of initiative players, just a lot of players don't know how to play against elves in general, but giving my opponent, especially JR, the benefit of the doubt, if they know what they're doing, they should attack your early mana, and it's by the time you have Artisan... You should probably, if you untap with Artisan, you probably win it anyways. It's just, you don't really want to draw multiple in the beginning. Right. I see these arguments that say, oh, you get to flood the board, right? But if you're on the other build, but that's not, I don't think that holds water if your opponent knows what they're doing. Sure. Kind of a snap keep, right? Well, not, this Arbor's bad, but... you got the best premier card in the matchup. What is my dog doing? Lou. Alright, I think we just ramp. Low key, I think Snuff Out is the best removal in Legacy at the moment. I know some people are gonna say Swords of Plowshares. I think it is right now better than Swords of Plowshares. Free is broken. Free 0 is less than 1, is my argument. Also, incidentally dodges Chalice of the Void, which the two death marks essentially dare our initiative players to bring in Chalice, right? Which I think is wrong. I think John doesn't bring it in. Was going to say, correct. Chalice on free doesn't stop it. My dog is something's going on. Lou, what is going on? Smells like Containment Priest. I think I'm gonna play the land first, so they don't priest in response. Actually, I should not. Well. Sure. I should have done that. I should have, because I have the snuff out anyways to kill the priest if need be. Thank goodness for snuff out, because that would have been a disaster. Actually, this can matter. It's still 1-for-1 technically against JR. Lou, you gotta calm yourself, bud. Wizard and human, alright. We have here. I think we bash. I'm gonna pretend as if I don't. As if I don't have the snuff out. Right? It smells like a Containment Priest. I'm gonna pretend, because I don't think the damage actually matters, like in this match. I think it's like all about board presence. Wizard tells me it could be a Mind Sensor. I think we want to dig right now. Looks like Solitude is off, which is nice. Well, hard cast. And depending what happens here, I think I could go after his mana too. Oh my god, that is a really good draw. So depending what he plays here, I'm probably gonna wasteland him. So he pitches swords, which is kind of interesting. I think we definitely get the wasteland. We're flooding out a little bit. I think the fact that he pitched swords tells me there's an ephemeral effect coming, or touch the spirit realm. Actually, there's. Not really. All right. I think this probably just locks up the game. This is the end game in this matchup, right? Yeah. So this is this is John's respect for us. He's essentially respecting. I know how to close this game out, and instead of wasting everybody's time. And this is what I mean by it's almost like a combo deck the way they play against us, right? They're trying to get the ephemerate combo going. This card is absolutely important in this matchup. Like, I would play 6 if I could. This would just have to do for now, right? Like, maybe Dismember is better, depends on what you want to hedge against, but Dismember does not kill 5/6 Dungeoneers. What's the sideboard situation here? I only had 2 Deathmark and Progenitor, so I only kept 3 cards. There's no need to like clutter everything else. Dustin. My dog. No. This is a dedicated testing session against John Ryan Hamilton. xJCloud. You can actually view it from his side as well. I don't have the link to his stream, and I don't want to snipe too. So if somebody wants to post it here in the text box, they can. So we're both simultaneously streaming. Thank you, Digital Sloth 58. Also, what we'll do is we're gonna play 5 matches, and at the end of the 5 matches, we'll discuss our thoughts on the matchup too. So for those who don't know, WPC is words per card. It's like this is copyright information from Jonathan Zhang. Essentially, a new metric to describe how powerful your deck is, right? I jokingly say if your legacy deck does not cheat on mana at least in 20 ways, then it's probably not competitive. Like, I think this is the most free spells I've ever played in L's, which is like 15 or something like that. It would be better if I had another land, but yeah, this is like cheating, right? I'm using all my luck right now with the double snuff outs or triple snuff out openers. ninjas and the I guess I should mention ninjas third, but the ninjas and the shadow community are what we share the snuff out technology with. I think black is probably underplayed at the moment. Like I said, I think this card is better than Swords of Plowshares right now. Granted, your deck has to be able to win fast before the life loss matters, but the decks I just mentioned don't have that problem, right? They're all like tempo decks essentially. Shadow, ourselves, and ninjas are all secretly like flood the board type. Tomb do nothing is an interesting start. I don't know what you're talking about. Who would just snuff out right? I know, right? What kind of lunatic would read your snuff out right now? We need to draw land though. That's a problem if we don't. We actually play a ton of lands too, so it's kind of surprising. Like I've seen the Nettle versions play 19, which make me cringe a little bit, and we're playing 23. Granted, 2 of them are like pseudo spells, but still. Uh-oh. Looks like a Dengineer. Ew. Don't we G's over elf since anti-search creature? I don't think so. Because we actually want to draw Arbor, right? We don't actually want to draw the Landlord. I think here we ramp again, and then we play the Reclaimer. I don't know. You know the Office meme with Pam and corporate asks. Thank you for the sub, D-Sit. Corporate asks her, "Oh, what are the differences between these 2 pictures, right?" And then she says they're the same picture. This and Force of Will. This is the black Force of Will. This is the black Force of Will, in my opinion. It's possible. Okay, he has a. It's possible he may think about going for the combo here. But I mean, I'm gonna give John Ryan benefit of the doubt that he knows snuff out is a very real possibility. Ooh, that's annoying. Sure. Yeah, this is Sage for sure. We could blow 2 snuff outs. I'm not sure I want to do that. I think we're okay with that, and we're just gonna flood board. I think they have to block, right, because of the Monarch. Like our opener is cracked because of the snuff out. So the reason why I didn't blow the second snuff out there is because I'm respecting Solitude. We get completely blown out by it. No damage that. So the reason why also I killed the jailer is because I don't want him to untap with ballista because I want to flood the board with the shepherds, right? We can't beat the second ballista. If they have it, they have it. But maybe that means we just have to blow the snuff out and try to get the monarch, right? We can give them one more chance. I just didn't want to go all in there on trying to steal the monarch back because if they have solitude, we honestly probably just lose on the spot. Or swords. I think they had even one mana up, but I could be wrong. Oh my god. That is unfortunate. I think here we have to go all in now. We're gonna steal the monarch. They can't double solitude this, so we will steal the monarch and then hope to stabilize. Oh my god, the worst possible. And now it's a protect the queen strategy, right? You didn't draw progenitor. This would be this. I know, right? Literally the first match. It always is progenitors. Also, if you like my content, here's my socials. I have to wonder if it's a solitude coming. It's got to be, right? Ooh, all right. There's that, I guess. Natural order right here would be pretty good. Ugh. Actually, we're just stone dead. They have 8 power. You can see. I guess we could have made them go for it. But yeah, maybe we... Yeah, maybe we conceded too early there, but... All right, we're gonna run it back. He's up 1 game. Actually, I could have. Yeah, I could have got one more draw. Maybe we just draw the snuff out there. But yeah, it's possible we draw. No, there's no endurance post board, but we could have drawn the snuff out. I guess I might have conceded a little bit early. I don't think we can keep this. This is better, but still kind of bad. Yeah, I did have the Monarch trigger and I missed that, but better here than in a real match that matters, right? Oh, we can hardcast Snuff out, Dustin. If it's a one drop, we're gonna fire out the wasteland. So do we go for the cheese play here? I feel like we do. The artisan is actually not that great there too, right? It's answered by solitude. It needs fodder, etc. Yeah. Artisan definitely a mirror breaker in many ways. Sure. I think we have to play the artisan now. That land was pretty nuts. I thought we were gonna win that match actually when we did what we did there. Also, like I didn't want to go all in until we had to with a snuff out. Like we could have done it one turn earlier. I just felt like we would get blown out by. Well, maybe it's worth it, right? Like you go all in, and then you get the card back immediately, right? Because the monarch trigger. So maybe it's worth it. Because you get the draw, and they don't get the draw. So I think in hindsight, maybe I do that. Oh my god, that jailer is actually kind of obscene against us, and I think the good thing is, like I said, regardless of whether we win or lose here, I do think we learned some things. Dude, that's like really bad. I've had it hard cast against me a few times, not that many times, but I do think that it's possible I just misplayed there. You know, getting the misplays out of the way here, right? They mulligan far better than we do, which is one of the issues with this matchup. Sure. I think we're probably losing this game. This card is actually kind of obnoxious against us. A bunch of do nothings. Could be, yeah. Could be. Question here is, what am I killing? I think we're just dead on board, to be honest. Even if we kill like a white plume here, I don't think it does any good. Oh man. Right, we're a little bit too far behind. Yeah, there is what? Oh, okay. That is game. I'm not beating this. Yeah, I mean, to be fair, it's still early. I think for what it's worth, I'm just like learning how to play against the deck at the moment. So yeah, is the deck the best deck in Legacy? Probably, but also I think you also underestimate how long it takes players to actually adapt their playstyle in addition to their list against the deck. So for what it's worth. All right, so we will see how this goes. Probably. Okay. Here, no snuff out, but I think we keep. Like we just have a lot of like board presence, if that makes sense. And they likely just lead with swords anyways, or a good chance they do that. Like I think they have to respect that we have snuff out. It might still get banned. I just think like whether that's a whole different thing, right? Like whether it gets banned or not. Like, I mean, it's entirely possible. It's just to be fair. Like I do think the list and the play patterns are still suboptimal against it. But I mean, I think they're not mutually exclusive. If that makes sense. Yeah, I don't think they're mutually exclusive. Like I think both things can happen. I think it could be ban worthy, but I also think it hasn't been that long yet. Not to mention the nonsense that is, we don't have all of the MTGO cards available. Oh, sorry, not all of the good cards from Warhammer and the other Commander set are not even on MTGO, which is the other hurdle. I think, like we don't know how that would shake things up because of Moloch, Saint Catherine, and what's the other one? And Defiler come to mind, right? Those are like the big ones. Especially since Painter reportedly has a good initiative matchup. If this were some other deck, I would probably run out Artisan. Because this is this deck, I think the play here is just a flood board. Also worth noting, might want to keep it track how often glimpse would have been good these situations. I don't think it would have been right. Like a lot of these matches, if the opponent knows what to do, you don't have the mana, right? See, John knows to aggressively go after our stuff here, right? I think they're gonna channel that. Jesus. Yeah, it is. It almost feels like we're playing against a combo deck. So, I mean, I wouldn't mind seeing it go, but it's hard to beat something like that, right? Like we just never have the mana. I think the line here, barring something crazy, is yeah, just Artisan into Arbor. I think what is likely to happen too is I wonder if decks like Breakfast would stay if White Plume goes. Good question. I don't know, honestly. All right, another evoked. Yeah, it is kind of hard to beat this combo, right, with ephemerate. Actually, that might have been a mistake. Now that I think about it, like maybe we just let the ephemerate go there. I never can play against this card. I make mistakes because I forgot about the rebound, right? Like maybe I should keep that there just in case. Or I guess it's the exile pal. Main deck Prague here would be pretty nice. But we don't have it anyways. Yeah, that was a misplay. I forgot about the ephemerate, and I should not have played both creatures out and given value to opponent. Oh my god. Not that doesn't matter then, right? Because I think that's probably just game. This is post board, right? Let me see. Yes, it is. So they got one extra creature out of it. I'm not sure it would have really changed things, to be honest. Like the fact that we misplayed. We let that go. I think we just hope to top deck a land. And then we get a Progenitus and hope that like goes the distance. Although it's looking very grim at the moment. The year's looking pretty good so far, Dukes. Right? They could have just made a ballista. Granted, we have more life. I think we do this to shut off the ballista, and then we're gonna get the Progenitus next turn. If they have the removal, I mean, we can't play around it, right? Like, I don't think a Glimpse of Nature hand beats what John had here as well, right? I think, if anything, it's even worse. I think we have to take it. Otherwise, we can't Progenitus next turn. Oh my god. So maybe we do have to play aggressively, right? But we got like blown out this game because we didn't have Snuff out. Too little, too late. Yeah. I mean, it's entirely possible that so that match not as close as the first one. The first one was pretty close until the hard cast whatever, right? Oops, wrong one. I do think White Plume in some of the other decks is probably not as good. I think this is a mulligan already, right? The endurance doesn't do anything. The shepherds don't do anything. Like, especially with no chalice, this just looks so bad. I think we have to mull, right? It's on. Yeah, I think we have to mull. Yeah, this is significantly better. So this is gonna be Bayou. I think we put the grist back probably. Like, it's apparent that John knows the matchup, and we're not gonna get to 3 mana easily. So, gotta put that back. Not to mention we have the green send a tutor for it if need be. Here, I think we want the access to green suns later on, and to grow the reclaimers, we're gonna fetch first. Most likely, whatever we play is getting swords right now. So the question here is, like, if they have Archon, I think this is like bad later on. So I think we want to just fetch right now. And just like try to get ahead on board, right? Feels like it's swords or like touch the. I don't doubt touch the spirit realm, but yeah, it feels like that's another swords here. It's so the main deck swords is pretty problematic for us personally. The Thalia build is a lot easier to beat. Sure. All right, we finally got to connect. And then here we're just gonna flood board. The one strategic advantage we have is we do know they don't have sweepers. Like, Ballista's a pseudo sweeper, but otherwise we're just gonna run things out. Like, we don't have that luxury as we don't really have that luxury against some of these Fury decks. They have to answer this now, right? Like, if we untap with Grist, it's probably over. So they have to get this off the board at all costs right now. A 1-drop off the top is pretty good, so that we can attack with a Mystic. There's the 1-drop we asked. The 2 should not mix. We're all in now. lost well. I think bottom. Definitely that. And this is like card selection. I'm not sure we have the luxury to do it. So bottom, yeah. Initiative is unfair. That's true. Oh, they have a third Dungeoneer. Jesus. Well, definitely plus here. And then what are we doing now? Am I? The problem is I don't have anything great to Green Sun for to take this off the board, right? Like. So actually, let's do this. I'm gonna. Yeah, we can go second grist and get our own stat. I just wonder if that's worth it, right? Like, because they can steal the initiative back, but maybe we just have to get the Dungeoneer off the board. Actually. Oh shoot! Hold on. Dog is puking. Luke. All right. I think here we just get a blocker for the. Well, they're gonna take the thing down anyways. I think here we take the endurance to block the Archon and then pass. I think that's okay. We're not gonna shuffle that back. I think we probably lost this anyways. So what's likely to happen here is Dungeoneer attacks maybe the Gris, I don't know. And then we're gonna have to we're probably gonna lose to the 4-1 menace hitting us, not hitting us. Well, that and the Throne of Dead whatever, right? Yeah, I think we're pretty behind, but well, there is that. Oh, but there's an Archon out. Jesus. All right. Actually, that was a mistake. I'm like misplaying pretty badly here. I feel like they probably have Solitude. Although there's a chance we go for the kill with Natural Order there, right? Uh, we actually messed up. Because of the Archon, we know that they know that the shields are down for snuff out. So we actually messed up there, and we should have attacked first before Gris. Like that was a mistake, and like no excuses, but I am a little bit sidetracked from the dog earlier. Interesting. Okay, I didn't definitely wasn't playing around with that. I feel like there's the fact that he has so many cards left in his hand feels like Solitude. But I think we're probably just dead regardless. Ooh, yeah, I think we're not beating that. It might have been correct. It might have been correct to. Well, actually, no, that's not true. because the Aidano would have killed whatever creature we had because it would have been +3/+3, right? So we would have been dead anyways. If we went for the natural order kill, I think now we're just literally dead on board. All right, we have not. This is game one. I'm not even sure a Progenitus could race in this situation. But the problem is it's hard to go wide if, like I said, your opponent knows what to do in the matchup. We can only block the 6. I think we have to kind of just like hope, right? We just take all the damage here and top deck, preferably Arbor. No, actually, that's not even an out. I think we're just dead on board here, to be honest. Yeah, I don't think there is an out at this point. Right, because what ends up happening is we're not gonna have lethal, and they have lethal on the crackback. My gut feeling so far is we will probably need more sideboard slots to cover this matchup. Like I don't think, and maybe one's at instant speed, but that one is like debatable. It's hard to say, right? Like when we've had the snuff out for the blowout, that it's been good, but otherwise, not so much. Also, there is a chance that maybe we have to take a land out. Like we, not that we're flooding per se, but actually, I think that's actually fine. I personally think the initiative matchup, the mechanic is fine. I think I think it's more so that it's a 3-drop, right? I think you have Monarch as a 3-drop like creature. It's probably similar issues. The other thing I think about it is as well is Ancient Tomb is, in my opinion, the real problem, or Soul Lands, I guess. It's just that there hasn't been as broken a payoff yet, but I think that it's always the enabler, right? Like, don't get me wrong, it's good, but I think the real issue is the enabler, not so much. The payoff obviously is like very cracked, but I don't think we can keep that. Yeah, that part is kind of annoying. Ravenous Panda. Not, our hands have not been great, and unfortunately, the Gris is like kind of not great. I think we keep this, but it's not, like I think the real problem is the Shepherds too. It's just so bad. Like if they don't have Chalice, like that's why people always say this card is broken. Not really, right? It kind of sucks. I think we have to do it like this. We put a land, I think, back, and sorry, we put a Shepherd back. And we put, I think, a Collector Oof back. I think we want 2 lands for sure. We do have the best card in the matchup. Unfortunately, you cannot play more than 4 snuff outs. I would if I could. And I'm not sure there is even an equivalent, right? Like maybe the closest thing is dismember or the death mark, right? Dismember obviously wider applications. Draven, you made a good point on Eternal Glory, but also cheat and avoid combat as much as assault. Yeah, I mean that's. Do we need more removal on the main with 3 top decks? I don't think we can play more than 4. That's already a lot. The question here is, do we attack into a containment priest? Probably not. I don't think it's worth it. Not to mention, we don't have to like we don't want to blow this stuff out. We don't have to. This is part of the problem, I think. Playing this, like maybe we just go away from the shepherd and dare them to chalice us. Like that is a thing I have not considered, but is like maybe worth taking a look at. One downside to Shepard in this matchup, I don't like UR either. Don't get me wrong, I would much. Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, Dustin, you have a good point. Yeah, the Shepherds have just felt awful in this matchup, and I think it might be right to dare them to have it right. The like we're, I think I want to dare my opponent to have Chalice perhaps like in post board. Um, I think we do that and just maybe pass the turn. Like I'd much rather have a visionary right now than Shepherd, right? Mind sensor. Do we care? Probably not. Watching the debate Anzi had play was super interesting to me, and outcome was Chalice sucked anytime he brought it. Yeah, I think so too. I think it might be correct to dare our opponent to have Chalice. Like anecdotally speaking, I've won all the matches my opponent has had Chalice like recently. I think we just let that go. I don't think we care. Interesting. Um, this is gonna be tough. I think. Like, do we want to blow it on the mind sensor? The problem is the priest is already on the board too, and we, yeah, I think we just pass here. All right. I could have saved myself some damage last turn, but now I think I just kill the mind sensor and then I think I just plus now. I lose 4 life, but I think it's fine. Like I could have like deck thinned, I guess. But even then, the reclaimer's not big, right? I just didn't feel like it was worth giving away that information. Like when we didn't have a payoff yet for the reclaimer. I mean, for the for taking care of the mind sensor, right? Has anybody tried boarding in a fourth natural order for those decks with no counters where natural order is critical? I feel like that's not really what the matchup is about. If your opponent is good, like it's very tempo ish, if that makes sense. I think here we go for the double block and see what happens, right? If they have it, they have it. No attacks. I think now is where we just play defense, right? We just hide behind the Gris. If they attack, we definitely just block with 2 tokens. Ooh, okay. Yeah, I think they have to, right? Like if we untap with this, it's probably game over. I think this is a situation here where we probably just start pressuring. He's tapped out, and I think we just start pressuring. Yeah. Like where the tomb becomes a liability potentially, right? Yeah, Gris is taking over the game now. And then we, I think, just attack all. I sequenced that poorly there. I should have attacked and then play the fetch land. Wow, that is an incredible draw. Milling the other Gris is kind of funny, actually. It is technically an insect. All right, let's see if we can win game 3 here. I think I have identified what the weak link in the current build against initiative is, and to me, it's this card here. I think we're gonna. I think going forward, we probably just try to dare them. To have like if they want to board and chalice against us, I think we just like okay that, right? Like it feels like this is the weak link. And obviously we keep at least, some. Thank you for the subscription, White Noise. We definitely keep here.
Because I think if they won for one, especially if they get the combo, right, the scam combo, it's gonna be tough to win. Especially like when we're under a lot of pressure too. If they play the tempo game, like we have our own tempo tools. The problem is we have some blanks in terms of like Alex or Shepard, right? Like, and it's,
Might mean we have to cut them if that makes sense.
also we're playing against one of, if not the best, initiative players in the world. So there is that too, for what it's worth. Looks like it could be a Dungeoneer coming. Oh my god, that card is kind of obscene against us.
Like it's very hard for us to beat this card. I think here we're just gonna try to flood board, right?
Like they could, in theory, like take us off. Like we have removal for our mana as well. So I think we just like force their hand, so to speak. Right? They have they kind of have to
Like respect progenitor is a possibility here, right? Ballista here would be a disaster, and I think that's what's gonna happen. Ugh. Yeah, like I said, Ballista there would be a disaster, and unfortunately, that's kind of what I thought would happen. Oops.
Jeez. Okay. Yeah, nothing we can do about that. Like I don't like I said, I don't think a glimpse is gonna help, right? When your opponent has these kind of hands. I think it's, to be honest, even worse because at least Artisan is a creature, right?
I think we probably lost. I don't think we can beat this kind of start. Um, like no matter how the deck is built, right? Like turn one jailer and then run away with the game. With backed by removal. Yeah, I don't think we can beat that no matter what. It feels like I'm playing against. It's not the same card. It kind of reminds me of when I was playing against Dreadhorde before, and it's like the problem is like we can't climb back to the game when it's like a very snowbally effect.
Sure. Yeah, I don't think we can win when they have a Phyrexian arena every turn, right? I mean, I don't think glimpse matters, right? We have 2 mana. I think artisan is even better than, oh my god. And I'm not sure what fixes that, to be honest. I think visionary is like probably pretty decent because like their spot removal gets a lot worse. Um, Actually, that doesn't even work. 2, 3. This might just be game. Actually, I messed up. What am I doing? I'm supposed to snuff out the containment priest and get the reclaimer. So that was a mistake. I don't think it changes the outcome, to be honest. Um, Especially since it cost me 4 life to do so. But yeah, I think that's game. Um, I don't think that changes the outcome, but I definitely misplayed there. So it's 3-0 right now. We're like getting our you know what cleaned. Oops. I guess we're waiting for JR to start the match again. Oh, sidebar. Yeah. I don't think we can keep this hand. Uh, did we take a game yet? Yeah, we took 2. So the scores so far have been 2-1. Sorry, 1-2, 0-2, and then 1-2. Mulligan. I think we have the mulligan that. And yeah, this is the real liability, I think. We're gonna play 5, so I have already lost overall. It's just like, can I salvage at least 1 or 2, right? So I'm in the whole 0-3 at the moment, and we're trying not to get skunked here. I think we just get rid. Yeah, I think we just get rid of that. And so far, I think it's been we were on the. I don't remember who was on the play the first game. Actually, the first match we were on the draw. The second match, I think we were on the play. The third match, I don't remember. They run 2, and that card has literally read win target game every time they've had it resolve against us. Like, I think my personal opinion is I think Monarch is more broken than Initiative. It's just that there's not a 3 mana one, if that makes sense. Like, I felt like every time they hit turn 1 or turn 2 jailer us, we've lost the game. Could be variance, but I do think it's very good against this. I think here. Oh, that is a problem. We needed hit land there. So if the Archon version is, well, actually the Archon is not even what's killing us, to be honest. The what's killing us, to be honest, right now is it's the amounts of spot removal that's going on. Like the main deck swords really hurts this matchup, and while we have like a liability in the shepherds, right? Like maybe that means shepherd needs to go, right?
Oh my god. I think that might just be game.
Yeah, but that's Max Carini. But that's the thing, right? I'm talking about one that affects the board, right? There's like the mill card or like the does it untap effects, right? But they don't really. They're not a creature which affects the board. And have we resolved a natural order yet? We there was a. I don't think so actually. I think all of our games that the two games that we won, I think were like related to Gris. So that is potentially worth keeping in mind too. Good observation, Joffin. There was a point where we could have resolved natural order, but it would not have been lethal. The other thing is like I think there was another point where game one we could have resolved it for Progenitus, but we just didn't have it in the deck, right? So that's the other thing. I think this game is probably already lost.
Yeah, but not for us, right? I think here we're just gonna try to flood the board. Seems like they have more removal.
So the one thing that actually John is doing really well is he's being patient with his removal. And I think a less experienced player would just like go hellbent early, and those are the easier games to win because there's less to play around. So kudos to John. Ugh. The current record right now is 0-3 microgram. 1-2 0-2 1-2. Yeah, it is a dire situation for sure. It just feels like unless we like the games we win tend to be the ones we have to snuff out, and if we don't, it feels difficult if the opponent knows what to do. Like we just have to hope this misses here, right? Looks like it kind of did. Dungeoneer, White Plume. Well, miss in quotations, right? They probably put the Archon, to be honest. Well, you could do turn one ramp into and then snuff out. Yeah. I mean, the games we win are the ones where we ramp turn one on the play with snuff out backup, right? Like, I think those are the games we win. The problem is like, if we don't have snuff out, it feels like the matchup is very difficult. I think here we want a Gaia's Cradle. And we probably have to absorb like some damage here. Like we have to make sure it's lethal is the problem. And especially the Ephemerate, which makes it almost like a combo deck against us. I think that is also what makes this version very difficult to beat. I think if they're like less combo-y, then it doesn't. And I think the biggest problem is the Shepherd is bad, right? Like it literally does nothing. Like we have a whole bunch of blanks. I wonder, like, there's some, like, I wonder if the thing is like we just cut the shepherds and just play like 4 Visionary or something like that. I think that is like potentially okay. Like we can go wide in that situation. Thank you for the fall, Jodo May. We can go wide in that situation and just like gas up as they spend one for one removal, right? Or you know zero one for two removal. Cause the way I'm looking at this right now is like we can't keep up if they have one for one removal every game, and they most likely do. Thank you for the raid, Straz Daddy. And I think we have to punish one for one removal with probably Visionary, right? Like affects the board. Also, here are my socials for those curious. We're getting our clocks clean right now, but I do think we've identified what is like the weak creature in the matchup, if that makes sense. I'm not sure how much deck building flexibility we have because Artisan like kind of needs one drops, but it does definitely feel like whatever is the weak link, right? Like with Allosaurus Shepherd. I think so too, Straz Daddy. Like especially oh my god. Yeah, so again, one for trading one for one removal is kind of tough here, right? Like I think Visionary actually low key would be pretty good. I haven't, but I don't think it's actually solved what we wanted to do, for what it's worth. It's hard to go wide if your opponent is good. It is Harry. The problem is I don't like a lot of these games we lose. I don't think it's because I don't think they have like multiple creatures on board, right? I mean, somebody correct me, but most of the games we've lost, it's like one creature on the other side, and they have one for one spot removal, and then it's like almost like we're getting Delvered in a way. You know, he has played this matchup better than any of my previous opponents. That is 100% true. There are some. The biggest one is like Hushbringer. I'm not, but then keep in mind they have four swords and four ephemerate too. I mean, not four, four touch the spirit realm too, right? So I'm not sure how reliable that is. No, I don't think Moloch helps this matchup for what it's worth. Like their creatures are too big, right? Hey Caleb, how's it going? Bone Shredder is like interesting. Um, I feel like Shriek Maw's probably better because it's 2 mana, but I could be wrong. I don't even think there's an out here, and I think the killer. Yeah, I don't think that's the thing either, right? We're just dead here. Yeah, the thing is like, so Caleb, I think that I don't think so. I think in most situations, if we untap with Artisan, we're gonna if we had the luxury of untapping with Artisan, I think in most cases what's gonna happen is we get Grist and it wins, right? Like the matches where we've landed a Grist, we pretty much have won. The problem is we have not been able to do that very consistently, like because our mana is being tied up, and that's partially because John has played this matchup very well, especially compared to some of my other previous opponents, like in leagues or whatnot, right? Like I don't think the tutor target is what is the bottleneck. The bottleneck is not being able to untap with Artisan. I think. The good thing also is I do have room in the sideboard. Like I do have room in the sideboard to address this matchup more. It's just I definitely did not think it was as lopsided as it currently is coming into the matchup today. And the part of the reason is the shepherds have been just by far the worst creature. I think here we pitched the dork. Yeah, especially I also found Caleb. It depends on the matchup too. I think some of these like ancient tomb matchups is like high variance in terms of like the pilot skills. I think like certain decks like Doomsday, I think control players tend to be all pretty good. Um, I think the Doomsday pilots all tend to be pretty good. I think it's some of these easier to play decks, so to speak, that have high variance in terms of like the top tier skill versus like a league player. Like I think most of the control players I face in leagues, because leagues take forever, tend to be pretty good. But that's my anecdotal experience. I don't have any like statistics or whatever. Hey Julian, how's it going? Actually, let's give out some mod access here, right? Since we have some eternal, everyday eternal players here in the house. For those who don't know the inside joke, I kind of give out mod access like candy. Sure. I think we just do it now. Try to say something interesting about Kai. Actually, Kai came up in my group chat actually the other day. Fun tidbit about Kai is, for those who don't know, when he top four the GP in, I think in Japan or wherever it was with Ant, he played a mismatch or a suboptimal fetch land just so it would be all foil and I think all Japanese. I could be wrong. Julian has been banned for 10 minutes. I wonder what is going on here. Sideboard only 3 cards because that's how much I've only dedicated to the matchup at the moment. I feel like that might be Caleb's workings, but I could be wrong. I think here we just like... I think, again, just flooding the board here, right? The Reclaimer is nice because it's actually... between it and Fiend Artisan, it actually lets you beat the Archon of Emeria that is actually hard for the Netto versions to beat. Like, because you essentially get a double spell every turn. Like, pseudo double spell. Like, these are the games that are easier to win, right? Where we just, like, flood the board. The problem is going to be winning the game 3, I think. We draw a land here, we get the Progenitors, and that's probably lights out, but... Again, we'll see what happens here. They could just snuff out into the combo, and then that's like kind of bad for us. But I mean, I don't think we can like they kept maybe. Okay, there's the Solitude. I think if they have it, they have to kind of go for it now, right? Oh, wait, so they do have it. Yikes! All right. I wonder if they go. Okay, they go after that. That's which is fine. We top deck a land. We get the Progenitors. Um. The question here is like, do I go for the snuff out here or like the damage? I don't think the damage actually matters, so I'll just hold it. Like the matchup is all about board position or board control, and I don't think like them gaining life and then us taking 3 turns like a big relevant thing. And if they top deck Containment Priest, we just feel really silly, right? Correct. I think we also hold. Like that's why I didn't fire it off. Also, if they go for the scam, then we get the full blowout, right? Oh my god, that's a good top deck again. That's good draw against us.
Artisan notably a lot worse against these white decks because it's not a randomly a 7/7. I don't think we. I think we just keep taking the life. I don't. If I feel like we attack here. Actually, no. They could have the Aiganyo, and we just get blown out. I don't. Yeah, I don't. We cannot do that. That's a card I never play around, and I just remember to play around it there. Like I said, the damage doesn't really matter in my opinion. I do think we found the weak link in the deck, which is nice. What that means to the deck building implications, I'm not. It's hard to say because like Artisan puts some deck building constraints on the deck. Land, thank you. I don't think we even attack. I don't think it matters. The other thing that this does is it Artisan can block Solitude now if we need it. Sure. Ephemerate would be a disaster here. Um, I think we main phase it. If they have it, they have it. Okay, so on to game 3. This is gonna be the hard game to win, I think. Right, the game on the draw. Were we on the play game 1? We were not. This matchup is also very play draw dependent, and I feel like, especially in the hands of a very good pilot, opposing pilot, it is probably very difficult. So for those who are keeping score, so far here's the count. These are games with sideboard. And granted, the Archon lists are significantly better against us.
than the Thalia list, right? Also, Ballista has helped. Here are my socials again, and so far I will be donating. Excuse me, donating at least $60 to John's cause. Here is his cause. I'll post it here. So you can donate there too if you want. Um, so the question here is like, do I just fire off the wasteland here, or do I develop the board? I think we once first, and see. I think we definitely take the cradle. Will you play until somebody runs out of money? I don't know. Maybe like it's a lot of $20 bills going on. I think here like they're down to 2 cards. I feel like Wasteland is probably the play. All right, that's fine. Like I feel like we might just win because of that, right? The missing land drops is like it's kind of insane for us here. That's probably swords. I've got to imagine at least. Maybe not. Yeah. Sure. So the good thing is probably can't even double spell anyways. So no need to kill the thing just yet. I don't think we care yet. I think we have to kill this now and take the initiative. We're going to a 4, which is the problematic part. Sure. No blocks. Sure. I feel like they probably should have went after the Archon, but I could be wrong. We get that. That's the thing. So we plus right. I feel like we kind of have to take down. Well, if we plus right now the containment priest,
We have the chump block, and they take us down to 1. If they take back initiative, we die to trap. Yeah, that's a good point. So I feel like we have to attack here. We have to do that, I think. Bottom, probably bottom. Oops. So we can minus right now, I think. Take this off the board. Get rid of the priest. The Archon probably attacks the Gris. Maybe it doesn't. I don't know. Oh, shoot. Okay, that's... Mistake. I screwed that up. I like tunnel vision into that for some reason. Oops. Yeah. I don't know why. I like brain farted there. I think there's a chance I stabilize. No, actually, no. I had the minus on the Archon because of the initiative, and then we probably just die anyway. So yeah, I don't think it mattered. I think this is good. All right, we're trying not to get skunked here. We're 0-4 right now. Granted, in 3 of those 4 matches, we did win 1 of the games at least. That's probably accurate. I think this is the type of hand that I think we are best positioned to win. We're on the play with Snuff Out backup and flooding the board. We're not. We're just going by whatever happens, right? I think it's been maybe he's on the play 3 times now, and I've been on the play I think my 2nd time. Well, I could be wrong. It's either 3-2 one way or the other, I think. I'm getting my clocks cleaned.
I don't know what that means.
Destroyed.
Oh.
Can you take care of that?
Well, after you.
Yeah, that's all. Or it's on the chair too, though.
It is?
Yeah, you didn't see?
Did you spray anything yet?
Not yet. I couldn't find it. I didn't want to hold up the stream.
No. Is he okay?
Yeah, I don't know why he barfed. You can just feed him, I guess. The pebbles.
He's probably hungry.
Are we totally black pilled on this matchup? We lose with a dork and Snuff. Probably. I mean, I feel like this is like. I mean, obviously you want like a Gris or something, right? But I think this is like as close to ideal as possible. Like on the play, Snuff Out backup like with
turn one dork, right? I feel like if we lose this, it's definitely really indicting here. So I think one thing I think we should do here is play that and then just like flood the board first before we that way they don't like solitude before we play the guy's cradle. If they solitude here, that's fine. Like, we already flooded the board, right? And we're just gonna like go take over the game next turn. They probably have to solitude the Land War Elves here. But like I don't think it gets better than this, right? Like we had like the dream start, so to speak. Yeah, I've never heard that term before too, Perspire, Mike. I don't think they mulliganed. Unless you're referring to something else, Raven's Panda. Like they have 5 right now, so 6, 7, 8, 9. Yeah, I don't think they mulligan here. But we kind of had the dream start, right? If we lose this here, this matchup is just hideous, right? We've already kind of down the hole. We're 0-4, but like, granted, we have been on the draw more often than not. So let's see what happens here, I guess. All right, so they take the initiative here. No way, I'm just saying hope they mulligan is a way to win, sure. I think if they have STP, they have to do it now, right? Otherwise, we're going to activate for 6. And they have to block. Oh, yeah, sure. That's like, they do have a fail rate. Yes, that's heads up, right? If they have it, they have to do it now, I felt. Otherwise, we're just going to 15 them, right? Like I said, this is kind of the dream start. We lose this here, like, it's just a disaster, essentially. I think in case they have Solitude, we have to just attack with all of them. And then for us, I think Lost Well is more important than, like, I mean, I think we top, right? Actually, we probably top bottom because we're going to mill the other one. So that was a mistake on my behalf. Okay, so they're trying to speed rush the thing. Actually, the menace here is actually a problem. Yeah, it's possible we don't even mill, but actually, no, we need a creature to block the menace creature, right? So we attack here. We send 2 in. They presumably maybe block 1.
Actually, the damage doesn't matter. So I think we do that first. It was definitely a mistake on my behalf. I needed to I think stash. I definitely should not have milled. I'm sorry, put that on top is what I'm saying. Yeah, that was a misplay by me. I like did it too like tunnel vision to do snuff outs with a grist on board, right? I should have top one, bottom the other, and then have a higher chance of drawing snuff out later on. They're on the combo line, if that makes sense, right? Like trying to get to the throne with the. I think here. We go for the wasteland probably. If they hit throne, can you get Eno to finish turn? Probably. I think we're gonna win regardless here. I think we do this first. Okay, we should have actually done it earlier, but probably attack. All right. We finally broke serve, so to speak, and won game one. So that is encouraging. Granted, I think it was. I could be wrong. It's 3-2 one way or the another. Where who was on the play? So pretty even regardless. What am I? Oh, the progenitor should be coming in here. But we kind of had the game like the dream start, and it was still a little bit dicey until the very end. I think even if they had dungeoneered again or played another one, we probably just aggro them out from there. That was like the one. It was like a little bit scary, right? Like it was close, even though we had kind of the dream start. Okay, that's auto mole. I think the issue is we have two play sets of creatures that are kind of bad. Between the shepherds and then the artisan is a little bit slow too. Granted, artisan will win the game if you untap with it. I think we have to keep and based on how the games have been going, I think we have to cut natural order. Right? We want to flood board. What we need also is potentially a snuff out functional reprint, so we can have copies 5 through 8, right? Also, I'll put up both links again. Here. Is what I'm playing for, and then I'll put up what JR is playing for as well. So it's at least 80 already on my behalf.
And then there's an argument to be made per sparring Mike between Dismember versus Deathmark. I personally think Deathmark is a little bit better, but if they're gonna go for the combo lines, maybe Dismember is better. Dismember has the bonus of being good against the mono black decks, which you are a little bit soft to, but I don't even know if that's like if that warrants like caring about. I'm not doing well. I am getting crushed. This format is Legacy Pun York. So that smells like a Swords to Plowshares. Yeah, the problem I think in this matchup is this card is just so bad. And I'm not sure if there's a fix for it. You can cut it, I guess, but then keep in mind Artisan needs some number of 1-drops. Like, the whole reason why Artisan's good in this show is because you don't have to play bad 1-drops, right? But suddenly this card is like bad against this particular matchup. Right? Like, if you want to play like Lingering Souls, it just feels the shell's too slow, right? Sure. I think we do it now. Actually, hold on. Yeah, I think we do it now. I don't think he boards in Mindbreak Trap against me, but you never know. All right, this is like almost a dream start again, right? Just like turn 1 Dork, snuff out, back up, and then into flood the board Cradle, right? I think we just like kind of had the nuts two games in a row, or our equivalent of the nuts in this matchup. There's an argument to be made. Maybe Natural Order is not that good in this matchup. But it's one of the ways to beat this card, though. Like, I feel like you're just cold to Archon otherwise. I think the matchup is also super swingy. I'm tempted to say, I don't want to jinx myself, it might already be over. Because like whoever has the strong foot on turn 1 and 2 probably wins. And we have not had the strong foot in most of these, in the other 4 matches so far. Like we've lost every game 1 outside of this match 5. So that is something to keep in mind, I guess. But there is a chance this might be already over, depending on their hand. Obviously, like a Ballista for 2 here, like will go a long way towards, fighting back for more control. I'm not sure which is worse personally between Shepherd and Natural Order in this matchup. Like Natural Order might be good if your opponent doesn't really know what you're doing, right? But like Shepherd feels really bad otherwise in this matchup. Yeah, no problem. Anytime. Good luck. Empire/Achilles. I think if unanswered, we just grist up, right? This is like very much a tempo mirror. Sure. That's pretty good. So wait, how? Oh, they had 1 extra from the tomb. Do we care? 3. Shepherd pretty good here, to be honest. So maybe the cut is natural order, as crazy as that sounds, because we just don't have tempo, right? It'll work against the shaky players, but it's never really felt like we won any matchups, any games here with natural order. Right? Like if they keep us off the mana, like there was like one or two games spots where the natural order might have been relevant, but for the most part, it's been a liability. Okay, at least it wasn't a complete sweep, right? We got one. So I just messaged John if he wants to like discuss this live on the air right now, how he felt about the matchup. All right, I'm gonna put this on. Phones. No, I had three cards. Ming Empire.
All
Yo,
right.
John. Hey, can you hear me?
Hang on. I'm desperately trying to figure out how to host you because I don't remember how Twitch works anymore.
All good, all good. Hey, congratulations. You like I mentioned over here on my end, you like cleaned our clocks like 1-4, and granted, and the one I had, I kind of had the nuts there, but maybe that's like the reality of the matchup. Any
Yeah.
initial thoughts?
1 second. I'm just gonna give up on trying to raid you because I have no idea how, and just post your Twitch link in my chat and then go offline.
Sure thing.
All right. Goodbye, chat. See you all in 5 seconds on Newton's stream as well. As soon as I hit stop streaming. All right, there we go. So, yeah, that matchup, it felt like a bit of a bloodbath.
I would agree. Yeah, we got granted, I think it was like 1-2, 0-2, 1-2, 1-2, and then 2-0 finally on my end. On the very, I didn't get swept, I guess, right?
Yes.
I think. I mean, first off, I want to say you played the matchup like pretty pristinely. I didn't notice any misplays, and I think you played it very well. Where like the matchup is very tempo oriented, and you just kept me off mana, which is how you attack elves. Not just this version, but just elves in general.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is being able to assess your roles. Luna in my chat mentioned that like being like weaving through like the control roles and the aggro roles when you need to is a very important thing to understand in the matchup. And I don't think like every initiative player is going to be able to do that. And I don't think every initiative player is going to be on like the same sideboard strategy that I was, but I think they probably should be. I think protecting the initiative is a very scary endeavor against elves, especially in your versions with like main deck snuff outs and stuff.
Right. The snuff outs definitely felt like they were the best card in my deck, but like the games where I had turn one dork with snuff out backup just felt like a complete different game.
Yeah, definitely. In that last match, I was debating between like turn 1 removal spell into like turn 2 white plume plus removal spell versus like turn 1 white plume put you to the snuff out test, and then you like played 3 creatures and snuff outed my things. Just it didn't matter that much, but in those instances, like succeeding in the snuff out check is like very game winning.
Yeah, definitely. I think from my side, it looked like the games where I had snuff out, especially with turn one dork, just like felt like a completely different game, right? Like and the games where I, especially in the earlier rounds, I guess, what do you want to call it, the first few matches where I didn't necessarily keep hands without snuff out, I just got blown out of the waters, right? Like some of those games.
There something that I noted on my end that I'm not really sure if it's possible to factor in to your gameplay, because obviously you don't know my hands and stuff. But some of the games where I led on like turn one land go on the play, and then I got to like plow your creature, untap, play white plume, suddenly get much more awkward for me if you just go like fetch land go.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know, like maybe you can get the read on that in like some situations. Obviously, it's like much worse if I just have like a solitude there and I play like white plume and you fetch Dryad Arbor, try to get me, and then I just like solitude the Dryad Arbor or something. But like there were some instances where if my game plan was like, all right, if he just plays fetch land passes, it's suddenly like way worse for me because I can't just like slam white plume and then like have this plow still.
Yeah. I think that is a interesting decision that I have to think about. Where like, obviously a lot of times you're representing swords, right? But the problem is like if I do nothing and you actually don't have it, then I get severely punished too.
Yeah, it's something to think about. Definitely not something to like do all the time, but like it's definitely something that was on my mind, at least as the initiative side.
Right. I think in most cases the way I built the current list, I don't know if I'm showing it here. I don't know if you're like in the stream or like or you're showing it on your own stream, but I built it so that there's enough redundancy where if you do swords, I don't like feel bad about being down on card advantage. There were a few board states where like because you swords my thing and then you had turn two white plume. Eventually, suddenly natural order wasn't lethal. Because I'm like down a creature, so to speak, right? But even then, you can like sequencing a little bit differently, and then like sort my thing later on. So I'm not sure how much it would have mattered because it would just mess up your sequencing is all. But I'm not sure the end result would have been different. You there?
Yeah, can you still hear me?
Yeah, I can.
Okay, cool. I think I agree with most of your assessments. I'm not sure if there are other like. How do you think you could like realistically like improve the initiative matchup, or you care to, or you think you're okay?
So
Versus
I think, so that's a good question. I think yeah, like you said, it was even though I got the last round, it was a pretty bloodbath, right? I don't know. I don't remember the exact count how many games. Sorry, how many matches you were on the play versus me, but I think it was.
I think
like,
I was on the play 3 of them.
Yeah, I think so too. I think you broke serve one time and I held serve one time. That makes it so. Obviously, being on the play makes a big deal.
Yeah.
I think there's two things, right? Like I can either ignore it, but then that means I have to pretty much beat every other matchup, right? And I think my personal take is I think initiative the gameplay leads to a lot of turn one combo, and while Elves has a lot of game against, especially this version against a lot of graveyard based decks, I'm not sure I can hope to dodge all of the Rite of Flamers every turn every round if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
So I think I probably have to address it. From my end, it felt like the worst cards in the matchup were definitely Allosaurus Shepherd and Natural Order potentially, right? Like Natural Order doesn't affect the board, and a lot of times, granted, maybe it's the way that the strategic planning of where I'm just like, maybe I don't run the thing out turn one if you have planes pass, right? But it felt like if I can get to Gris, I probably win. And natural order didn't really matter. Like I don't think I ever presented you except maybe once. Maybe I don't remember.
Yeah, you got me once, and I almost raced it. If you didn't have
it was like pretty scary because there was like one match. I think it was the last round right now where actually maybe not the last round, but even where I kind of had the ideal start game one on the play. Like you almost sped rushed the dungeon almost. Made it pretty close, right? Even though I had like turn one snuff out, turn two like flood my board, so to speak, right?
Yeah.
What did you feel on your end was like the weakest card from my end, or on your end too? You can I guess comment on either one, right?
So the weakest card from my deck, probably Dungeoneer. It's tough because they all like fill their their roles in different ways. And one of the nice things about initiative is that when a card like doesn't really fit what you're trying to do, you can pitch it to like Solitudes and Chromoxes and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And like, but the thing that I quickly realized is when you're on the play, you just want to like do your broken thing. Like, I was my initial thought was, oh, I should just board out White Plumes because it's really hard to fight over initiative. I'll keep Dungeoneers because they can like break through board states. They're big. They can like attack into and like clear grists and stuff like that. But then when I was sideboarding, being on the play, I was like, wait, I just like don't care about this 4-drop. I just get to sometimes play White Plume on turn 1. And it doesn't matter if he has like creature plus snuff out because I get to untap and have a bunch of removal spells.
Mm-hmm.
So
go ahead. I'll let you finish first.
So I think the weakest link itself is kind of initiative because you have structured this deck well to fight that fight. But on the other hand, I think the deck is weaker towards the fact that this deck is just playing like 14 removal spells or something, and even more in post-board configurations. So in a lot of games that didn't involve Grist, which is like your main value engine, I felt like I could just set up with some creatures and removal spells and just kind of win games. Like that
makes sense. So it sounds like from your end, it felt like Dungeoneer maybe have been the worst card, but that's all. Even then, it's more situational, right? It's just like if, for instance, you didn't have all the removal spells, and I happen to not have the Snuff out, right?
Yeah, there are instances like, especially after like we exchange some resources early game, I kill some creatures, you play some things, and then like one of the best cards late game to draw is always going to be like the big 4-drops, draw Palace Jailer, draw Dungeoneer, stuff like that.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I actually mentioned that during the stream. I actually mentioned Jailer specifically. I said every game that you played Jailer, I felt like I could not win. Like the drawing a card every turn just like ran away with the game. And I think early on I probably misplayed one of the games where I should have attacked and I didn't, and I figured I forced a trade with a Ballista. I think if I were to do it again, I would definitely have snuff out that Ballista and force. But the reasoning why I didn't do it at the time was I figured in case you have the Solitude. But I think denying you a draw and drawing one of my own is potentially worth the risk there. I don't know if you know what game I'm referring to, like early on.
I vaguely recall a game where I chumped with a Walking Ballista against like Elvish Reclaimer. I think I recall that, but yeah, if you had stuff out there, I think it's probably correct. Although, yeah, because then I can't take Monarchy back either. Like that turn immediately, you have 2 creatures. I have an empty board.
Yeah, I think that was the misplay, and I think maybe that's, maybe it's not as bad because I think I lost that. Well, I lost a couple 1-2, so maybe that like changed the outcome of that round per se. But definitely like not a lot of room for margin when like a strong player, maybe the best potentially initially player in the world here is on the other side, right?
There was one other error. I was hearing some feedback that you thought you were going to lose that game anyway, but I thought you were like fairly ahead with the trap lethal with Archon. If you just attacked with one creature that turn, then obviously you like lose to Aganjo or Swords of Plowshares or whatever. But if you attack with one creature and then sack that creature to Grist to kill my flyer, and then chump block the 4/4 priest with the other one, and then you just get a plus Grist every turn to make a blocker. It felt like I was fairly out of that game without top decking like a removal spell pretty quickly. Or another initiative creature to make lethal.
That makes sense. I actually thought about that, and at the time where you didn't, put counters on the Archon. I'm assuming because you wanted you assumed I was going to kill the Archon. It made it too easy to kill the Archon, if that makes sense, or the decision. But yeah, I definitely punted that game. But
also, I put the counters on the priest because Archon has flying, so I need it to stick around to attack over your creature and trigger trap to kill you. So it's like I might as well make the priest bigger. Because that's the one that I think is going to stick around.
Yeah, that makes sense. Also, I wanted to thank you, or apologize, I guess, for being patient that one stretch. My dog threw up. I don't know why.
It's all good. Yeah, I have a dog and 2 cats, so I'm more than understanding of pet emergencies.
Yeah, I was pretty surprised when that happened, and it was not like an area where I could just like leave it alone, if that made sense.
Yeah.
But I guess from your side, what did you feel was like the weakest creature, or what you didn't care about?
Versus your deck?
Yeah, I think it felt like to me Shepherd was pretty bad.
Yeah, Shepard. I mean, I don't board in I don't board in Chalice of the Void. I think a lot of people will probably either be on main deck Chalice of the Void and not board it out, or like board it in if they're like if they're not like looking specifically at your list and just like thinking, oh, it's elves. But like, I really don't like Chalice versus your list.
Do you even think it's good against the other list, to be honest? Because my gut opinion is based on the way that the games played out, at least. Granted, I definitely didn't play optimally in some circumstances where it could have mattered. Specifically, the one that you mentioned where there was the Archon. I just like brain farted and just like did not kill the what's it called?
The flyer.
The flyer, right? And then trigger trap, right? But I think ignoring that for a second, do you think it would have mattered if it was on the more traditional combo shell? Because it never really felt like I had the mana for what it's worth.
So I'm not like super excited for Chalice against Nettle Elves, but I think it might be kind of necessary because the other axis is like the glimpse turns, and suddenly you don't have a lot of interaction for that outside of Archon. So I feel like you kind of need Chalice as another way to try to fight Glimpse. And the deck does have like 4 Solitude, 4 like Touch the Spirit Realm, sideboard Walking Ballista and stuff. So you have ways to fight Allosaurus Shepherd like that aren't Swords to Plowshares. So you can kill it when there's a Chalice in play a lot of the time anyway. So I think it's a necessary evil versus like Glimpse Nettle Elves, but
So I guess my point is in the games we play right now, and granted, like I said, maybe I could have like changed some of the outcomes, but it felt like to me, because I was trying to keep track, right? A lot of the games that you won, I'm not sure Glimpse matters because the other version is like tied up. Like essentially what you did was you tied up my mana, and I think when that happens, because not a lot of people force, for instance, the turn 1 Dork out of Elves, like enough, if that makes sense. Like if you're like Delver and you don't have removal, I think you have to force the turn 1 Dork, right? But I don't think a lot of people realize that or don't know. And I think a lot of the games that we played, I don't think Glimpse of Nature would have mattered because the mana is tied up, if that makes sense.
Yeah, you didn't have enough like resources to put into like a big Glimpse turn through like a bunch of removal and stuff. And that's like why you cut stuff like Glimpse initially, right? It's because like hard to get through against decks like Delver or Control where there's like casting a bunch of removal spells on your stuff, all that.
Exactly. That's exactly it. Like if you have the mana, like I think a lot of players what they make the mistake is, oh, I'm just gonna counter their natural order. But the problem is unless you're a combo deck, like they can do it again the following turn, if that makes sense. And I think, at least as for my end, it didn't seem like Glimpse of Nature would have mattered in a lot of these. It's not like I had infinite mana in a lot of these losses. It's just like usually it's 2 or 3 mana, and maybe Glimpse draws you, 2 cards, 1 card, like depending on the board state. But assuming no Archon, Archon is a nightmare for that deck. In case I'm sure you already know that, but like
yeah, definitely
for the audience here, I don't. In case it's almost a scoop if I put it that way, like. Whereas I think this version has a lot more game because Reclaimer and Artisan kind of allow you to pseudo double spell a turn.
Yeah, that makes sense.
What do you feel about Natural Order, by the way?
Natural Order is probably important enough. It puts pressure on. It puts pressure on me because I need to keep you off of 4 mana often in post board games because like the Throne of Progenitus is really scary.
Yeah, I guess it's really important from a strategic standpoint, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, because my gut feeling was, even though I didn't really cast too many Natural Orders, I felt like that strategic standpoint is pretty important, and probably why I think it's probably still better than Shepherd post board. And I think
and there are a lot of points where like if you draw a Natural Order here, you're much happier than like most other cards in your deck.
Right, because a lot of the cards don't, especially a lot of the cards just don't line up really well. The biggest one being Shepherd, I think does not really line up well because especially when the opponent is cutting it, which I think is correct. Like I think you were like I saw on your Max's blog that you said I'm onto the elf players trying to trick me into keeping in Shepherds, right? Even though their 1-drop count is so low.
Yeah.
But actually, speaking of which, for those of you who haven't got a chance to read it, I would highly recommend John's essentially primer / article on Min-Max blog regarding the deck. Granted, the list is a little bit different now. Do you want to talk a little bit about like the fundamental differences between when you wrote the article and now, like for the audience?
Yeah, so when I was the initial build it's still like fairly popular. I know Mengucci won the I forget what it was, like an RCQ or something,
Mm-hmm.
with a very similar main deck, slightly altered sideboard, and then I forget Matt Brown, I think, took it to split top 2 of the challenge last Sunday. So like the deck, that specific list is still out there. The key differences are it's like main deck Chalice, it has Thalias and Spellbinders instead of like Archon, Once Upon a Time, main deck Plow.
Mm-hmm.
Most of the rest of the deck is the same, I think. Currently I'm on Archon because I just have felt like a lot of like the filler creatures are really weak in initiative. Like was not getting enough bang out of Spellbinder or Thalia or like stuff like Peacekeeper. So I was just going for more individually powerful cards like Archon.
Mm-hmm.
And then Once Upon a Time to just draw your good cards more rather than like fill the deck with medium cards.
So speaking of Once Upon a Time, did you cut a land when you added the 3 or no?
No, I fully just put 3 Once Upon a Times in the deck and still have 18 lands.
Okay, I like that a lot actually because me personally, I just think like so many of the mana bases are just so greedy, and I for one appreciate the fact that you are pretty conservative with your mana bases too. I know before, for those who don't know, your D&T list, you traditionally have played more lands than like other players, and then the pushback is like, well, D&T has always played X amount of lands, but you're like, well, they were wrong.
Yes, I am a big fan of mana base respecting, which is why I'm not a fan of like the Mox Diamond lists. Always look like a mess to me. I even added a land from like I think the list of my articles on 21. I'm on 22 now, and then also the Once Upon a Times. It's just when this deck gets to do its thing, it's just very broken.
Mm-hmm.
So you just want to maximize your ability to do your thing, and just like you don't need to worry about a lot of the fail cases that often.
No, I feel you on that. Like, I don't know how. Well, actually, I do know because you were able to spot, how functionally, structurally, this list is like pretty, for the most part, immune. I would say fully immune, but like fairly immune to Chalice of the Void, right? The difference, I would say, like, I'm not sure if you noticed the mana base where the traditional Nettle list have been typically on like 19 lands and I think 2 maybe Once Upon a Time, whereas I'm on 23 lands. That's 4 extra lands. Granted, 2 of them are like spells almost, the Bog and the Wasteland, but still, and then compared to 3 Once Upon a Time, right?
Yes, big fan of respecting mana bases, actually being able to cast stuff. It's always nice.
Yeah, definitely. Did you have any other thoughts? I guess actually, from your perspective, I guess there is like some debate on in the community between Deathmark versus Dismember. Which one do you think personally is better from your end?
Death didn't feel that threatening to me. There were a couple of times. So key thing that Deathmark misses is the like ephemerate / touch the spirit realm channeling lines, right? Where you can't like respond to a flicker on a solitude or something.
Mm-hmm.
But that being said, your life total was definitely like taxed, especially by already having stuff outs. If you have dismembers on top of that, it does get a little bit dangerous.
Mm-hmm.
Like initiative can be a very aggressive deck, and like one of the games I snuck through enough damage just because you cast like 2 snuff outs and I just had some creatures that got to attack a couple of times. So there's definitely a trade-off there. And I think like with snuff out, it covers your bases enough that I need to be worried about like getting snuff out on my like Solitude Ephemerate regardless. That you don't need like 6 instant speed spells. You can just kind of split the difference, play some cards that don't cost life.
Yeah, that actually all makes sense. It kind of like along the lines of what I had mentioned before. Like I said, I think for the most part the life doesn't matter, but until it does, if that makes sense, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like because it's in chunks too. So like for the most part, I don't care if I need to snuff out 3 times because I think in those games I probably win if I ate 12 life just to like keep your board clean, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
And then it definitely felt like my path to victory, like based on the games that we've seen at the end, it typically involved grist, right? Like just like stabilizing with the grist, like ticking up and then just like clogging up the board, so to speak.
That was the biggest thing I noticed when I first looked at your list. I was like, all right, so most of this looks like pretty normal or snuff outs here. Almost more so than the snuff outs. I was like, 2 grist is maybe like the scariest thing out of this list against initiative. That card is like very good. especially if you just go like turn 1 like Dork that doesn't get killed, turn 2 Grist. The like initiative is not very good at taking it off the table.
Yeah,
It
yeah,
just
yeah,
gets
for
like
sure.
hang around. If you get, especially you get to like back it up with stuff like Snuff Out or whatever, so like a Dungeoneer can't get through to it. You can definitely run away with a game if you get a Grist into play.
That all makes it. Actually, just so I think I heard correctly, but I just want to make sure I heard just for the audience. I think we're in agreement. I think you said this. I think Snuff Out is by far the best card in the deck, right? In the matchup.
Yes, I think the way that your deck is constructed, you can't. You're fighting on the axis of like you can fight over initiative. A common point that I like to stress to players is that to fight initiative as a fair deck, you need both board control and the ability to take initiative back. And Elves, as normally structured, no snuff outs or whatever, it has a bunch of creatures, but it can't like remove creatures from play. So you can like swap the initiative back and forth, but initiative is usually better at playing that game than you are. But with Snuff Out in the mix, you gain that element of board control. You can take the initiative and you get to keep it sometimes.
Not only that, the part is you get rid of their creature, but at no mana, right? Like you get to develop your board even further.
Yeah, the fact that you can go creature plus Snuff Out, like there are so many games where it is very important that Snuff Out costs 0 mana.
Yeah, definitely. Like I jokingly said, or I'm not even jokingly, I half jokingly said on Twitter, I'm not Twitter, on my stream earlier during match, I feel like it's almost better than STP in this metagame. If you can run
that
it,
makes
obviously.
sense. I could see that. I have similar feelings about like Solitude.
Yeah, that makes sense, right? The Solitude, they're like the color shifted versions of each other, right?
Yeah. And there are a lot of games where it's just like if I have like that, even that game 1 in match 5 there, it's just like if I don't have to decide, oh, do I want to cast Plow this turn or do I want to cast like White Plume Adventure? If I can go White Plume and Solitude your thing, suddenly I have much better chances of winning a game than if I just have to like kill your thing and hope you don't have 2 creatures, or White Plume and hope you don't have Snuff Out, stuff like that.
Yeah, that all makes sense. Like especially on my side, like I would if Snuff Out were like Fatal Push or Death Mark or whatever, or Dismember, right? It's just a whole different thing, right? I can't kill your creature and play my own. You know what I mean? It's the same dilemma.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense.
So I think definitely the matchup definitely felt unfavored from my and granted I could have played a little bit better, but like I don't want to make excuses myself or whatever. Like I definitely misplayed, and I mean quite frankly I think you outplayed me. If you're taking the whole context for sure of the 5 matches, you outplayed me at least 2 of them. I felt like, right?
Yeah, I think in a different world that definitely could have been, like a 2-3 or maybe even a 3-2.
Right. I definitely don't think. I think the ceiling on those games or matches definitely. I think the best case scenario, even if I didn't misplay, I think at most I think I win 3. And I think the floor was like essentially what happened, right? Or maybe I don't have the hands that I did the last round, which were kind of bonkers, and maybe 0-5 even, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I guess I don't know if you're still streaming or on your channel or not.
No, I turned off my.
Okay,
my
so
stream.
I'm assuming you're on you see my screen, right?
Yep.
It sounds like you're okay with the death marks that were in the sideboard. I only have 3 cards, but I also mentioned at the beginning of the chat that initiative in a way has kind of forced me to innovate, whereas I kind of probably wouldn't have, to be honest. Like, I think the weekend I mentioned in the tweet, the weekend initiative kind of came out and like won the Saturday challenge, and then Jason top 4 the Sunday challenge. Elves this list actually finished second and first respectively, but also those were like untuned lists, and a lot has changed since then. Mm-hmm. It sounds like you're actually on board with the death marks over the dismembers, even though the dismember actually helps against some of these combo lines, right?
Yeah. Does make sense. I mean, obviously, there's other things to think about, not just initiative. If there are other matchups where you're thinking, like, I want these dismembers in addition to snuff outs, then that's, another option.
Yeah, so I think the big one is where the dismembers would be relevant is maybe Painter, but I think I've since have figured that matchup out. The other one I think is like relevant is like some of these mono black decks, but I don't think those decks can beat initiative from what I understand. That's what Jax told me at least. What is your thought on that?
Yeah, I mostly agree. My my very truthful, unfiltered thought is that initiative doesn't actually like have very bad matchups. People keep asking me like what the deck's worst matchup is, but I don't think this deck has matchups that are like that bad.
Mm-hmm.
I think most of them are like okay, maybe a little bad at worst, and then just like rapidly escalate from there.
Yeah, that makes sense. No, it because especially since I think initiative have just so many broken draws, right? Like even a quote unquote bad matchup, it can only be so bad when your deck is broken. If that makes sense.
Yeah, I won a lot of bad matchups by just playing like turn 1 White Plume Adventurer, hitting them for like 15, having like a removal spell for a creature.
Honestly, those are the games. I'll be honest. Those are the games I'm most afraid of. Where like I don't have the snuff out, but I kept because I don't know what my opponent is on, for instance, or I don't want to assume for say, right? Like, or because the problem with elves is and any critical mass deck is you're not really afforded the luxury of mulligan aggressively, and I think you kind of know that because like you saw I don't really mulligan much, right?
Yeah.
And sometimes you just have to keep hands that you think are okay, and then like they're on the play. They go turn 1 adventure, and then with removal backup, and you don't have the snuff out, and you plus per se. And I just feel like I'm not gonna win those games if that makes sense.
Yeah. I do mostly agree.
Do you typically plus more or do you scry more?
I've recently fallen under the right side of the dungeon, being the actual good one.
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of people are just going to go left. That's the easy make your thing a 5/5, hit him for 15 over 2 turns, and that used to be like how I was playing the deck, just because it was very good and still is in different spots. But I've been going right a lot more lately, and I think it's been more correct as the meta has adjusted. You just once you get to throne against a fair deck, it just becomes so hard for them to win. Mm-hmm. So you just take the right path because it just increases your card quality during that, like the stages of like I'm trying to get to throne and trying to prevent my opponent from doing it, from stopping me.
That makes a lot of sense. Actually, I'm glad you mentioned that because I used to be under the. So actually, I guess this is a 2-part question then. Or 2-part response. I used to be under the impression where like I'm most afraid of like the people going left, and I don't have the snuff outs or whatever, right? But maybe what's it called? I personally also have been going before when this first was a deck, right? I was going left because I thought, oh, everybody else is going left. But the more I played this, I think every time I took the initiative, I think you saw I went right, and especially for this deck, I think it's built almost like a combo deck even though it's like more. It's like a combo. It's a tempo/prison deck the way I built the artisan list, and I think same thing, right? You just want to stabilize with card quality and make sure they don't steal the initiative back, and I think that's probably what your thinking is as well from your side.
Yeah, definitely.
Do you actually what is it called? How often do you use Arena? I'm just curious.
Very rarely, maybe a little bit less than I should.
Mm-hmm.
But I like having the extra mana a lot. I also, with the Once Upon a Times, like one of the only ways to hardcast it later is getting that treasure. But definitely hard to arena, especially against elves, because a lot of the things can just tap themselves. So
right, that makes sense. Or like they just pitch to a grist or whatever, right?
Yeah, sack to a grist, fiend artisan, whatever.
Yeah.
So it's definitely not going into the arena a lot versus elves.
Yeah, that makes sense. Like. And obviously, if you're forced to do that, it probably is a weird board state where you have something big like a Dungeoneer, I'd imagine, where like you just want to kill the creature, right? It's more like a fight, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I've probably gone into the arena probably a single-digit number of times since I started playing the deck. It does not happen a lot, but there are definitely instances. I've arena make your opponent sack a land to protect their like safekeeper, stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense. Actually that's now that I think about it, I guess excuse me. I guess what I want to ask is I know it's real, in my opinion, real preliminary to talk about bans, and I know like the legacy community in particular is really notorious about talking about bans, but and part of that is also I feel like because not all the relevant cards are available yet on MTGO. But let's just say fast forward, 3 to 6 months from now. Do you think, gun to your head, do you think anything gets banned?
White Bloom's not going to be illegal in 6 months. I very much believe that, and I don't know if it might not just be a power level thing. I think that it maybe is a power level thing. someone in my chat earlier was talking about it being less broken than like some of the other recently banned cards. I think it's more broken than Ragavan was, and Ragavan got banned. But more importantly than like, maybe more importantly, maybe not more importantly, is just like play patterns.
Mhm.
And Ragavan maybe wasn't too broken for Legacy, but Ragavan play patterns were just absolutely heinous.
Mm-hmm. No,
And
I
I
feel
think
you on that. Like I personally, especially towards the end, when Ragavan actually did get banned, I found it a little bit ironic because actually that was when Delver actually had its lowest win rate. When especially when the control decks at the time, incorporated the Days Undoing combo and to give them game against combo, right? Because traditionally some of these control decks cannot be combo at all, and I personally thought like Ragavan was, obviously we're biased because we're not playing blue decks, but I thought it was fine because it allowed some of these other decks to like beat up on blue, if that made sense.
Yeah, I think Ragavan Delver was like one of the worst iterations at beating things that weren't very specifically blue decks.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I don't think the
go ahead.
I just don't think the card was that powerful, but I do think like play patterns are very important, and I think the play patterns for initiative cards are basically absolutely horrendous.
Now,
it requires
I would agree with that. Like I
it
think,
requires you to be either fast combo deck and ignore what your opponent's doing, or play a very specific set of like mixture of creatures and removal and like counter spells or whatever to like stop your opponent from doing what they're trying to do, take the initiative back, prevent them from getting it again, stuff like that. It just doesn't promote good play patterns. So even if it's less broken than like Renin 6 or Oko or Dreadhorde Arcanist or whatever, I just think the format's better off if we just like stop having this deck in the format.
Yeah, no, that actually all makes sense. And kind of where I lean towards as well. Like I've been asked, by people on my Patreon or my Discord, like, oh, or just on Twitch, right? Like whether I think it should be banned, and I say, well, if I think power level, I think some decks can probably adjust, but like I do think there's been a precedence that's kind of set, right, with Ragavan, right, like banning for play patterns especially, and just like it just makes people not want to play Magic, and I don't know if that's, I know at some point Legacy's just when you're doing your thing, maybe your opponent doesn't have fun, but it's especially unfun with those two kind of cards.
Yeah, I think Legacy is going to be a worse format if we just like, this is Legacy now. White or like Initiative Zombie is just one of the best decks in the format. It's beatable by some decks, and the decks that can't beat it are just completely pushed out of the format. That's just life. I think Legacy becomes much worse in that case. And I mean, at its core, Legacy is a casual format, right? We're not like qualifying for Pro Tours or going to RCs and stuff. We're just we're here playing our old format, playing our old cards, having fun, and we should like at least try to make the format enjoyable while we're here.
No, I completely agree. The irony is both of us qualify for the Pro Tour because of Legacy, but I think that's more a bonus than anything else.
Yes, definitely.
But that is pretty funny. I actually agree, and I've been on the side too where like I do think it's a little too early to ban because some of the other cards are not on MTGO, but I do think banning for unfun play patterns is, to me at least, acceptable, especially after Ragavan kind of set the precedence for that already. I have a quick question, and maybe you can answer this. Like, my personal opinion is I actually think, and I mentioned this on stream, but I think the Monarch ability is actually a little bit stronger than Initiative. It's just that there's no 3-drop Monarch that affects the board the way White Plume does. And do you agree with that or no?
So it's twofold, I think. One is that initiative creatures are better with more initiative creatures, whereas Monarch gets worse with more Monarch creatures.
Sure.
Because every initiative creature just takes you further to the dungeon, but once you have Monarch, the rest of your Monarch cards just don't do anything. The other thing is that, like, in addition to being able to just churn out a bunch of value through, like scry 2, make it 4/1, or deal 5, draw a card, and then obviously the throne is just a huge card advantage engine. You also just get to take really aggressive lines when you need to. Like, if you're turboing out Palace Jailer and your opponent's just on like Doomsday or Storm or any other number of combo decks, doesn't matter. If you draw like 4 extra cards or whatever, they're just gonna kill you. But if you're turboing out a White Plume Adventure or a Seasoned Dungeoneer, and it's like, okay, now it has 2 counters, now it's attacking you for 5, now trap, you take another 5, now you're dead. It just the ability to both generate card advantage and aggression, as well as having a 3-drop, is super important. I think most initiative cards are fine in some stompy shells. If we just get rid of the one card that costs 3 mana, the others can like exist and be fringe playable. But yes, the fact that one of them's 3 mana is really stupid. The fact that they compound is really stupid, and the fact that it's aggression as well as card advantage.
No, that all makes sense. I'm glad especially for people who aren't as familiar like with you. For those who don't know, like you should follow John Ryan on Twitter. Like he is, like I said, one of the fathers of this deck, and like secretly the trophy leader at one point with his his Frodo BG's account. But I'm glad you mentioned that because something I had not considered when I did this assessment was the stacking, right? Like double Monarch doesn't stack, and definitely something I had not considered. And the versatility definitely is a big thing as well. I consider that, but like definitely you want to go towards a certain side of the dungeon, right, in the specific matchups, and that does also make a lot of sense, for sure. Something I also want to point out is Ancient Tomb is a card that I feel like is completely broken and people don't realize how broken it is. How much of the deck do you think is White Plume versus just Soul Lands just being completely broken?
I think Archon has been a really good white card to cast in Ancient Tomb decks for a long time, but just hasn't really had the rest of the shell to build around it. Like we see in Vintage that Archon's like pretty powerful in addition, like in tandem with like Mox and stuff where you can accelerate it out on turn 1 or 2. The issue is that like all the white cards for Stompy decks have just been really bad. We have like Soldier Stompy, White Eldrazi decks that like have kind of fringe existed, but it's really kind of lacked the card quality. And the fact that now we just have like 8 initiative cards that are really, really good, in addition to stuff like Archon, you can fill out the shell with like Solitude. Obviously, the elementals are just so good in Stompy decks. So the fact that we finally filled a white Stompy shell with good cards means that we get to play a very, very good deck. And I think like Archon's a part of that. Initiative cards are obviously a huge part of that. But I think eventually, given enough time, we'll reach a point where we can play another white Stompy deck. It took a really long time for this one.
No, I'm glad you answered the way you did. I think that all makes sense and kind of is in alignment with what I thought as well. I thought like Ancient Tomb is just a broken card. It's just White Stompy never had the payoff, if that makes sense. Like Ancient Tomb is the enabler. It's just, I guess, looking forward, do you see, especially with Wizards being very aggressive in printing powerful creatures, do you see Soul Lands potentially being banned down the road?
No, not really. I think Soul Lands are about as grandfathered in as most other things. We haven't really seen an old card get banned in a while, right? It's always been like the new broken thing. Like, the Legacy is just a format where you get to play our old stupid things, and when something gets too good, we just kind of ban the new thing that broke it. Like I don't think we're banning LED over Breach, or we're banning like Days over Murktide or EI or anything. Like people talk about banning Days a lot, but like realistically, that's not. I don't think that's a very viable path forward. Like I said before, like Legacy is a casual format. A lot of people, like a lot of Delver players, would be pretty upset if you ban Days. Versus we ban the best new card on a Delver. You ban Murktide or whatever. You ban EI. The deck's still going to be around. People are still going to be happy playing their Delver decks. We don't want to just like flat out gut an entire archetype with like formats as old and as expensive in paper as these.
No, I feel you. I think of the the monkey that like looks away, and I don't know if you know which meme I'm talking about, but I jokingly, or I guess not jokingly, but I know Ancient Tomb's not going to get banned for the reasons you just mentioned. But I think of that monkey meme where like the monkey's looking away. Oh, hopefully they're not looking at me, and I'm playing my own Broken Land, right, in Gaia's Cradle, which I think is obviously the best card in the deck, but it's kind of like that where it's just grandfathered in, right?
Yeah, we're a format of old broken cards. We're playing with Days and Lotus Petal and Ancient Tomb and Gaia's Cradle and LED and stuff until the heat death of Magic the Gathering, I think.
For sure. I don't want to keep you too long. I know right now it's just turning 10 o'clock over there in Central Time. Is there anything you want to top off the? And thank you for doing this, by the way. I'll go ahead and definitely donate to your cause. $80. And actually, I'll post it again here. I posted a few times already, but I'll post one more time here in the Twitch chat the link. But anything you want to add, I guess. and it could be about anything, to be honest. Like, I know you're a big Owl House fan or anything like that.
Yeah. Step one, everyone in chat, you gotta go watch the Owl House. You gotta do it. You gotta promise me, chat. You watch the Owl House. And then the second thing I wanted to say is I think this is mainly for chat. I think the biggest takeaway from like playing our match today, it shouldn't be that like, oh, the matchup against Initiative is horrible, right? 5 matches is like such a small sample size, and we're also playing like you and I are both very good Magic players. The average person you're playing, even in a challenge, is probably not going to be the quality of the 5 matches that we just played. And I think on average, like I'm going to beat up a bunch of players playing elves. You're going to beat up a bunch of players, like random players playing Initiative Stompy. That's just like how it's going to work sometimes with good players versus average or below average players. I think well maybe while this matchup might be unfavored, I don't think it's like just astronomically bad. Like 4-1 could easily, like we said, there's like one misplay that could have easily turned into a 2-3. Maybe like with some tighter play on your end or some like looser play on my end, it could have easily been like a 3-2 or something. I think the biggest takeaway is like how the matchup felt, certain play pattern, like we talked about, like you kept bringing up, like key cards, what cards felt weak, stuff like that. Those are the big assessments. I don't think people should be walking away saying like, how am I ever going to beat Initiative Stompy with my deck? I hope that's not what people learned.
No, I think that's a good point. Like I didn't even I didn't even think about that prior, but like I do agree. Even though I got rolled, the matchup with I definitely, for the record, I do think you outplayed me over the totality of the 5 matchups. I think if I played maybe tighter, like it could have been easily 3-2 my way, or at least 2-3. I think there was one game for sure I think I probably threw. But I think that is a good point, because I do see some players, and maybe it's just a really bad matchup, but like I guess what comes to mind is the lands matchup. Like I see a lot of people who are very demoralized. Is probably the best word I can use, right?
And it's understandable because the deck is also just very demoralizing to play against. Sometimes your opponent just like wins a die roll, they play Eternal White Plume, and you're just like, how am I ever gonna fucking beat this? But I think the important thing is like, well, if you're step one, if you're not having fun, just take a little breather. You don't always have to be playing. It sucks. I took a pretty long break from Magic during the height of Snowco because I was just not having any fun at all. It was a very bad time for playing Magic for me, but sometimes it's good to take a step back. Alternatively, a lot of people keep trying to innovate, keep trying to take steps forward and fight the matchup. And like, I think that is a reasonable path forward, until White Bloom gets banned, whatever, maybe. But I hope people don't lose heart. But I kind of understand if you do, because this deck is.
No, I think that's a good point. Like what's it called? I personally have enjoyed Initiative being shaking up the metagame, so to speak. Like I said, a lot of these innovations I see. I mean, I try not to comment because social media. This is a whole different thing, right? But like, I see a lot of people saying, "Oh, the metagame is completely warped. Even Elves is playing Snuff Out main deck." Like the reality is, I actually think Snuff Out main deck is probably the path going forward, even if Initiative takes a White Plume ban, for instance, because it's just like when you're at least personally, right? When I'm pushed back against the corner, I feel like that's more incentive for me to like innovate. And I think, at least for me, maybe not everybody thinks like that, but I have personally enjoyed the so to speak challenge, right, of like trying to keep up with Initiative.
Yeah, it's honestly kind of been a breath of fresh air. Like, since the Ragavan ban, a lot of the time the meta has kind of felt like, oh, Delver's the best deck, whatever. There's a couple things that float around below Delver that kind of move in and out, but like Delver's just been the king of the castle for like the better part of a year. So it's been nice that there is a very large shakeup to the format, and maybe it's not the most fun to play against, but at least it's like different things are happening, even if it's only for a little bit.
Right. No, I agree. I definitely think like, we're seeing some of these other decks that are, I mean, I know you said like Initiative doesn't have like a very bad matchup, but maybe like where it's closer, like some of these other decks that have been at least doing okay against Initiative, such as Painter and I think Cephalid Breakfast. Those are the two like that get cited
Breakfast
a lot.
would be the one that I brought up. That one, a lot of people have been pretty high on Breakfast versus Initiative. I'm personally not seeing it, but it's hard to see your bad matchups with this deck.
No, for sure. Like it's like you mentioned, right? Like I'm sure you're outplaying like a good number of your opponents, and you definitely outplayed me tonight. And then I think the opposite can be true too, right? Like I've had people tell me like, oh, you don't even see some of the bad matches for your list because you're just probably outplaying your opponent. Like people tell me that all the time as well, and I definitely think like that is a big factor.
Yeah, I definitely agree.
All right. With that said, any parting words? Before actually, I guess I have one last question. Who would you like me to raid personally? Do you have any preferences?
Is anyone streaming Legacy right now? Punishing Waterfalls is streaming.
Okay, hey, Punishing Waterfalls Matt actually raised me a lot, so I'll go ahead and raid Matt
Yeah.
at the
Yeah, he was.
moment.
I think he was the one that tweeted fairly recently with your list, right?
Yes, he did. He was playing the new list I posted on Patreon, and then he 5-0 with that. But again, like I said, a lot of this is just don't get discouraged because like how many times is your opponent like outplaying you and vice versa, right? Like I think that's like very important to keep in mind. All right. With that said, I'll go ahead and raid Matt right now.